pjnet.tv Thursday evening, 9 p.m. on the East Coast of the United States. We are ready for two exciting programs tonight. The first one will start in just a moment. The bumper is running. We are recording. We are streaming on 9 platforms. We have a chat room waiting. Counting down to Studio 8 in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, good evening and welcome to pjnet.tv. I'm glad to be here, and I am so glad to see so many people who regularly come to pjnet.tv. However, you may not be there. You could be on Twitter, and there's about 7 places you can find us on Twitter now, and that number, I'm glad to report, is increasing. You can find us on Facebook Live. You can find us on YouTube. We're glad you're here. If you'd like to join the fellowship over at pjnet.tv, we have a live chat room there with some great people that would love to meet you and fellowship with you while we watch the same program. So if you've got a desktop, a laptop, or even a tablet, take your cell phone over to pjnet.tv. Folks, tonight we have a first-time guest. In fact, he's kind of new to pjnet.tv. He was here for the first time only a couple of days ago. Want to shout out to Doug Carter for helping us find this young man. And Kirby Calhoun is joining us from his home in the great state of Florida. And Kirby, folks, we always do test run, a little connection test in the morning or the day of the program to make sure everything works. And we got connected. 19 minutes and 25 seconds later, I was able to say something. So, Kirby, tell us your story.
Well, thank you for having me, first off. Yeah, I can be a talker. I hope my wife appreciates it as much as I do. But really, so I'll start with my childhood. Basically, I'm a Special Forces communications sergeant. At the end of my military career, I was on ODA 7112. Earning the Green Beret was the highlight of my life. It's by far the greatest thing I've ever done. So I say that, and I will take us back to my childhood. I had a pretty troubled youth. I was an Army brat. I was born in Germany. I moved around a lot. Didn't have permanent friends. I was sexually molested by an uncle of mine. I was in a horrific car accident that should have killed everybody involved and did not. We all walked away. My parents got divorced, and in the middle of the split up, they sent me from Germany to go live in Wisconsin with my grandparents. And about a week and a half, 2 weeks after that, I watched 9/11 happen on my TV before I walked to school that morning. That basically led me into a life of doing drugs, drinking, doing a lot of the things that, the stereotypical troubled youth go through. A lot of anger that was not channeled properly. And I had a hard time in school. I had multiple truancy fines, really a rough go. However, something inside me one day turned and told me that I needed to join the military. So I was 4 pounds underweight when I went to enlist. I had to eat more just to be able to join. After I enlisted at 135 pounds, I became a human intelligence collector. And basically human intelligence is interrogations or running informants, kind of like a detective would do here in the United States, trying to get an informant inside a ring. They were training us to be able to get into terror cells and to be able to access intelligence that would help the military. I ended up being very good at it. I was an honor graduate, and I found a purpose in my life in the military that nothing had ever given me before. And I had grown up in a Catholic church, but I never had a relationship with Jesus. So I never truly was a Christian in my perspective now. I went to church not because I believed, but because that's what Mom wanted. I met my wife while I was in AIT. So we got married right away. I went to Fort Stewart, Georgia, as a human intelligence collector, and then we deployed to Iraq. Iraq completely changed everything about me as a person and kind of how I viewed life in general. You know, and again, I never had a relationship with God. I never viewed him as being a part of our daily lives. So when I was in Iraq, you know, as a 21-year-old young man, and helping take bombs off the street and helping bring justice to American soldiers that have been killed by capturing the people that planted those bombs, that took those shots, you know, it changed me as a person. And it, you know, as one person, I was able to have an impact on people around me. And I needed that, but I still didn't have God. And in my time in Iraq, and I think a lot of people have these situations, but you know, I know of at least one RPG that did not go off that likely would have damaged our vehicle, if not destroyed our vehicle had it hit it. I know I've ridden over at least one IED that has not gone off. You know, and those things at the time were hair raising, but I never considered God's hand kind of on me, you know. So I continued on with my life. When I got back from Iraq, I started drinking a lot. Had a hard time sleeping. This kind of typical stuff. I ended up going to a few military schools. I did really well in those schools. And I encountered some great leadership where I was at, but I also encountered some bad leadership where I was at. And the long story short here is I eventually wanted to leave my unit so I could try out and see if I had what it took to be something better than just a regular soldier. So I decided to go to selection. And really, I know for sure now, looking back on it, that God's hand was on me the entire time I was at all involved with Special Forces, because I am a very average guy. There's nothing special about me physically, mentally, or any of those things that I ever really considered. There's nothing extraordinary about me. The only thing that I had was that I had the no quit mentality, you know, and I had the love for the dudes next to me. Like, I wanted to be the best, most elite soldier I could be, because I knew that if I was able to make it to that level, I knew that everybody there wanted to be there as bad as I did. And that, you know, there's a brotherhood and a bond there. Mm-hmm. So I went and tried out for Special Forces. And it cost me a lot physically, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into earning the beret, you know, but by God's grace, I did. And I encountered a lot along the way, far too much that I could share all kind of here tonight. I will say this, though. I have walked alongside, there's no doubt in my mind, alongside some of the best warriors that this country has ever produced and will ever produce. There's no doubt in my mind. I've seen men that can play in professional sports willingly choose to suffer and go through a grueling course. So instead of making money, they could serve their country to the best capacity possible. And right now, you know, that's something that America needs. And I believe that near and dear to my heart. We're seeing a lot of stuff that America, that's not helping our cause. And in reality, there are people that sacrifice everything for this country. And this country offers so much to anyone who chooses to grab what it offers. And to see somebody like me be able to walk alongside these men is a humbling thing, whether you serve God or not. So once got my beret, I came down to Florida because I was stationed at 7th Special Forces Group. from here, I did a deployment to Afghanistan and then a deployment to Colombia. Both were completely different, completely unique. Afghanistan is unlike anything that you can read in a book. It is an amazing thing to walk in that country that historically has presented challenges to every nation that's ever gone into it. And it's a testament to our country that we were able to go in and do what we did, to the ability that we did. And I've seen America's best give everything that they have for the Afghan people. And it's a humbling thing to see. And in Colombia, the same thing. To watch these men train with us and know that they're fighting the frontline battles against narcotics, especially a lot comes out of Colombia, but they're fighting the frontline war. And to be a part of that, even if it's a behind the scenes part, to be able to train these men that have to wear masks to go operate in their country to stop drugs from flooding our streets. It really kind of put that puzzle together in my mind, how interconnected we all are and how powerful the U.S. military really is. So all that being said, I decided to get out of the military. The same drawing that brought me in was kind of pulling me out, even though I had sacrificed so much. I didn't really have a way to explain it. I just knew it was time to get out. So I got out of the active duty military, but I didn't let everything go yet. I was like, I just want to keep my one or two fingers in the military pie. So I'm not falling by the wayside yet. And that really was the end of my active duty military career. And I had a great chance to train some amazing Georgia National Guard soldiers in my time in the National Guard. But the event that I remember most in that time period is the one that brought me to know Jesus Christ. And one day, on the way back from Atlanta, Georgia, where my National Guard unit was, I was driving. It was about maybe 8 o'clock at night. It was dark out. I had just gotten off of I-65 in Alabama, and I was on a backcountry road heading home. And all of a sudden, I went from driving to standing in the desert, and I was surrounded by tents. And I saw people walking in front of me, and I could smell them. They were so real. And I'd never been here before, and I don't remember hearing or seeing anything that would identify anything. But it was very real to me. I knew that something was happening. This is not like just me having an imagination. And all of a sudden, I was back in my car on the side of the road. My windows, I think, were down. All the electronics in my car were no longer working. My engine was running, and I started to shake, like somebody who's like just really nervous and unable to control their nerves. I started to shake, and God spoke to me, and he told me to help his people like I would help him. And I recognized his voice right away. And then I heard Jesus. And Jesus told me a couple things. One, he told me that he was coming back for his church. And he told me the second thing was that if he came back, I would not have gone with him. And then he told me the third thing, that we were living in prophetic times. And I had no concept really to what any of this meant. I knew about Jesus, but I didn't know him. And while in the car, I was filled it felt like a weird sensation filled my body from head to toe, like a oil or a syrup almost. And I just started crying. And when I drove home, I basically cried the whole way. My car, everything buzzed up about 20 feet to 20 yards away. Everything came back on, the bells and whistles, everything started working. My cell phone started working again. I called my wife and I was like, I think I might have just had like a brain aneurysm, or I think God talked to me. And to her credit, she went and she bought me a Bible, and I devoured it within a couple months while taking full-time college courses. During that time, I learned a lot about myself, and I think everybody who comes to the Lord and accepts that God is real, when they start to search Him, the Bible will reveal things to you. And I started seeing Bible prophecy, and I started studying preachers that were teaching Bible prophecy, because that's one of the only things that I really knew about, that I knew to look for. Well, I went months. I knew that the Bible was the Bible, and I knew that it historically and archaeologically had been verified. I did so much research because I didn't want to just jump into a belief that I couldn't tangibly defend and stand on. But I found the firm footing to stand on. And even while taking college courses, it caused me to ask different questions while attending a university, having a different worldview, understanding that things are not being talked about on campus that used to be talked about less than 100 years ago all the time. And it was powerful. I eventually ended up driving down one of the highways here in town next to the church I attend now. And on the sign, it had a Prophecy Files marquee on there. And I immediately, as I read it, with this intense oil sensation, and I call it the liquid love because that's what it felt like. And I asked out loud in the car by myself, like, do I need to go here? And I felt it again, and it answered me. And I went. And when I went there, the pastor spoke multiple verses and multiple messages directly at me. And I know for a fact that the Holy Spirit...
Now, did you go... Let me interrupt you. Did you go up there and take the front seat, or did you just kind of slip in the back?
I was as far back in the back as you can get.
Okay. That could be a Baptist church. We're 18 minutes after, just giving you a heads up. If you want to talk about your book, we'll have time.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So basically, that night, Jesus spoke to my heart. And I didn't have the courage to give my life to the Lord in that church, but on the drive home I did. And I go to church now twice a week. Fast forward a few months afterwards, God told me to write all this down because people in America need to hear the struggle, and that God can use terrible things for good, and that everything that we go through has purpose and has a meaning, and there's nothing that doesn't have value. And God can literally walk with you through every single valley. And if God can take someone like me and put me on a team and walk next to Silver Star recipients and people with Valor Awards, someone like me, then He can do it for any single other person that wants to take it and that's willing to do it. And I just encourage anybody that feels trapped, lonely, that has nowhere else to look, if you're able to, consider serving your country. And if you're already serving, consider taking it to the next level, because that's what our country needs right now. We need men that are fearless and that are willing to take a step out in faith and trust the Lord.
You wrote this all down in a book, Single Set of Footprints. Where'd you get that title?
Well, the Single Set of Bootprints kind of came to me. We played around with a couple different things, and it was a play on the Single Set of Footprints. I tried to find if someone else had taken this, the simple boot print replacement, and I hadn't seen it yet. And I figured that anybody who already walked with the Lord would see that, and they would know that this was a good book for them to read. And
Is
that's
it really
actually a picture of
possible
my hand and
to
beret.
is it really possible to capture your story and put it on video or put it into print? I mean, when you read your own book, does it really convey?
It does. This is not a book about how awesome I am. This is a book about what I went through. And in my book, I talk about the times I wanted to quit. I talk about the times I was angry at my teammates. I talk about the times that I failed. I talk about the times that I was injured and shouldn't have made it. This book is about, it's a story of my life, but this book is not about me. It's about the men that I served with. And it's about a great God that put me on teams to serve alongside them.
From the chat room, how many languages do you speak?
Right now, almost English, I would say completely.
Okay.
I studied Pashto fairly in depth while in my special forces training, to the point where I went to Afghanistan. I was able to maneuver without an interpreter, and I in fact did so often. But it took a lot of training and it took daily usage. And I definitely, when I left and got out, I left Pashto behind because it's very difficult to maintain. Mm-hmm. And then when I went to Colombia, I learned to speak a little bit of Spanish. Out of necessity, I had to teach people how to fast rope and rappel, and I had about 2 weeks to learn all of the proper terminology and all the doctrine, and it was a stressful time period, but it was absolutely wonderful to watch. And I mean, so I would say one.
Okay.
And a half, maybe.
You've dabbled in others, yeah. I've traveled
Yes,
enough in the Caribbean and doing some work there. Yeah, I can get through an airport and through a restaurant, and that's about it, But
a lot of pointing.
Yeah, it's but a smile is universally understood. So
absolutely,
that's good. Kirby, you've been through hell and come out the other side, and we thank you for your service to this great nation and your stories of others who have done the same, and we hold them in high regard. I can turn my mic back up because. Okay. Well, Kirby, thanks for sharing, and great to have you as part of the PJNet family, and we appreciate your testimony, and we hope to hear more about you and from you and in the days and the weeks ahead, and we appreciate you, brother, and we're going to make room for our next guest.
Sounds good. Thank you very much for having me.
All right. Thank you, Kirby Calhoun, right here on PJNet.TV. Well, in just a few moments at the bottom of the hour, we're going to take a little trip around the Cross W Ranch with J.D. Wininger. And so I'm going to get everything set up here. So on my way out, I have 2 questions that I would like you to ask yourself. The first one is this: what is the boldest thing you've ever done for Jesus Christ? And the second one is, when was that? Our challenge is to never be satisfied with either answer.